Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network. For the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews, press 1.
Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
From the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network for movie talk, Alicia Malone with Scott, Movie Mantz, and the Schmoes Know. This is Profiles. In-depth spotlights on the greatest filmmakers and artists in motion picture history.
Hello, profilers, and here's Johnny. Welcome to episode 28 of Profiles. Wow, can you believe we've been doing this since August 12th, 2014?
No, I can't.
But has anyone been as excited as we are, as our profiler friends are, that we are profiling the one and only, the legend, the man himself, Jack Nicholson?
I was so great when I did my Q&A on our Facebook page the other day, and I got to announce that we were talking about Jack Nicholson this week. Everyone was so excited. It just shows you the enduring power of Jack Nicholson. He is like no other actor.
But when you look at the great actors of the 70s, like Al Pacino, who we just talked about, Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, what makes Nicholson different? Like, why is he separate from those guys?
He's so charismatic and he's so unique. I mean, all those guys I feel like don't look like the typical Hollywood movie star. Jack definitely doesn't at all, and he has such a great grin, those eyebrows, and the voice, and he shows that he can act. He's done every different genre. He's worked with incredible directors, 12 Oscar nominations, and he's made over 60 movies.
60 movies, and even the more recent ones are still among his best. But it's like you said, I mean, he unlike those other actors, he plays darker characters.
Yeah, he plays psychotic characters really well.
Psychotic really, really well. There's nothing like seeing him fly off the handle playing a psychotic character like Jack Torrance or the Joker or Five Easy Pieces when he, like, you know, cleans off the table at the diner.
He plays rebels really well.
Yeah, really characters who defy authority. But he, even to this day, like when he walks in a room and he's wearing his sunglasses, he just exudes coolness.
He's so cool.
He is so cool.
I want to hang out with him.
You do want to hang. You want to go to the Lakers with him.
He's so awesome. Remember the moment from the Oscars just a few years ago with Jennifer Lawrence? And they had this great back and forth behind the stage, and it was just the best.
I remember, actually, speaking of the Oscars, when he came up to announce Best Picture in 2006, and everyone thought that the Oscar for Best Picture was going to go to Brokeback Mountain because Ang Lee had just won Best Director for Brokeback Mountain. He opens up the envelope, and he goes, whoa, crash! And he's wearing his glasses, and I'm like, that's what I remember about that Oscar show, was Jack Nicholson announcing Best Picture.
Have you ever gotten to meet him?
Actually, I did. You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
You want to hear a funny story? Okay, here's a funny story. Just a month ago, my brother from New York, he was in town, so we went out to dinner at, I forget the name of the restaurant, but it's in West Hollywood. So we're sitting there, we're having dinner, we're catching up for about an hour and a half, and the maitre d' comes over and says, I've never had to ask this before, but if you're wrapping up, our next guest would like this seat.
This is like in As Good As It Gets, where he's like, get out!
Basically, but this guy was nice about it. So we're like, well, who's the guest? And he goes, it's Jack Nicholson. So we're like, okay, we're done. Let's go. So we're walking out, and we're like, you know what? I think this earns us the right to say hello to the man. So I said, hi, Jack Nicholson. My name is Scott Mantz. I'm the film critic for Access Hollywood.
That's so cool.
Crazy!
That's awesome. I've never seen him, and I've never gotten to meet him, and he's someone that I would always love to meet. He's just awesome.
Don't think I didn't try to get him to call into Profiles.
I know.
But
you got another incredible guest.
Early high five in the show.
When you told me about this person, I ran next door to Maud's room, and I was like, guess what?
Oh, really?
And she was like, what? So I can't wait for you guys to see that a little later on in the show.
You're not going to guess who it is now, but when it happens, you're going to be like, of course.
What? Yeah.
But ultimately, when it comes to the movies, I feel like it's Jack's world, and we just live in it. There is something special about seeing a new film. Like, I remember when we saw The Departed. That was a big deal because it was the first time he had worked with Scorsese. But even going back and watching his older movies, full disclosure, I realized I never saw The Last Detail.
Yeah.
So I went back and watched it, directed by Hal Ashby, 1973, and boy, is that a good movie.
Yes, and it doesn't matter whether he's in the starring role or a supporting role, he always makes it his own, and he always stands out, even when he's opposite great actors.
Well, it's amazing how even when he is opposite great actors, and again, The Departed is a great example because he's got Leonardo DiCaprio, you got Martin Sheen, you got Matt Damon, but it is still Jack's movie.
It is.
But, this is an actor who not only had a wonderful life, he had a fascinating and interesting life.
Really interesting life. So let's take a look at some of his life in our video called It's a Wonderful Life. Roll it!
John Joseph Jack Nicholson was born on April 22nd, 1937 in Neptune City, New Jersey. Nicholson broke into Hollywood by working as a gopher for legendary animators William Hanna and Joseph Barbera at MGM's cartoon studio. But when they offered him a job in animation, he declined, citing his goal to become an actor. His big break came when B-movie producer Roger Corman cast him in his first film, 1958's The Cry Baby Killer. Their collaboration continued with The Little Shop of Horrors, The Raven, The Terror, and The St. Valentine's Day Massacre. After taking a stab at screenwriting with The Trip and as a co-writer on the Monkees movie Head, Nicholson landed his breakthrough performance alongside Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper in 1969's Easy Rider. His career really took off the following year with 5 easy pieces, followed by The Last Detail, Chinatown, and of course, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson is tied with Walter Brennan and Daniel Day-Lewis as one of 3 actors to win 3 Academy Awards. He's been nominated a total of 12 times, making him the most nominated male actor in Oscar history.
Wow.
Incredible.
12 times. That's crazy.
12 times.
And then there's Meryl Streep, who's been nominated like 80 times.
I know. Incredible.
But for someone who gives such unforgettable performances, what is your first blood? Do you remember what your first Jack Nicholson movie was?
I'm sure I must have seen snippets of The Shining when I was quite young, but the first movie that I remember seeing him in was The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah.
I liked that film when I was young, and I remember him, it was, 1987, so I must have seen it much later.
Way to go with the dates.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it down. I can't remember it like you can. But when he played Daryl Van Horn, that millionaire, he was so fun and so crude and kind of sexy. I mean, he seduces those witches, and I just remember thinking, like, who is this man?
Did you see it in the cinema?
No, not in the cinema. On VHS with some friends at a sleepover. But that's the first one I remember.
Right.
Were you The Shinings? I know you saw that really young.
I saw it really young. Yes, you are correct. Saw that in May of 1980 with my parents. I wasn't even 12 years old yet, and they had the gall to take this innocent little kid to see the freaking Shining. But I got to tell you, Leash, seeing that movie, what do you remember about that film? What do you remember about that film the most?
The axe scene with Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny. That's what I remember about it too.
Yeah, which is a terrifying moment.
And it is an unforgettably terrifying moment, which is why for years, I couldn't see him as anything other than that character.
And you could never look at an axe in the same way.
Even when I saw Terms of Endearment, which came out 3 years later, 3 years is a lot when you're that young. And he's great in that film. I mean, it's great chemistry with Shirley MacLaine, but I kept thinking about The Shining. But that is why The Shining stands out for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's the scariest movie of all time, but it is a terrifying film, and his descent into madness is so great, considering he started off that movie pretty mad to begin with.
Yeah, we'll be talking more about that later on. Now, we had a great suggestion that instead of calling our 5 top films Fast 5, that this week we would call it 5 Easy Pieces. So we're going to do that. So our 5 easy pieces at number 5 is audio.
You make me want to be a better man.
As good as it gets.
And I'm so glad you used that line.
Yeah.
I love that line.
That's his redemption there.
What a great line. You make me want to be a better man. He's like talking about how he took the pill. He hadn't been taking the pill because he hates pills, but he took the pill, and the look on Helen Hunt's face. This movie came out December 23rd, 1997, directed by James Brooks.
Yes.
One of 4 movies he made with Brooks.
That's right.
Broadcast News, Terms of Endearment, and then he was that movie, How Do You Know, which wasn't very good. Actually, that was the last movie he made, that Jack Nicholson made. It cost $50 million to make, made $314 million worldwide, nominated for 7 Academy Awards, and it won 2, Best Actor for Jack Nicholson and Best Actress for Helen Hunt.
Which was the last time that the same movie has won those Best Actress and Actor Oscars.
You know, when I read that, I was like, is this an old post? Because
but no,
yeah, I guess it's true.
It's still true. Yeah, it still holds up. And it's interesting because if you look at the film, you think, okay, it's, you know, it's pretty light, pretty like nothing exciting happens.
Yeah, it's a light movie.
It's very just, it could be a throwaway movie, but the actors is what makes this so special. I mean, Jack's character, he's homophobic, he's racist, he's obsessive compulsive, he's a writer, he's a really horrible person, but someone like Jack makes him likable, and you actually start to understand him completely, and you see the scenes with him and the dog, and it's so sweet.
Yep.
And then you have a look at Helen Hunt, who is so great at just adding humanity to every character that she portrays. And then you look at Greg Kinnear, and this was him playing against type, and same with Cuba Gooding Jr. as well. They were both playing completely against type, and it really worked.
Well, Helen Hunt was she won the Oscar for this movie the same year she won her Emmy for lead actress in a comedy for Mad About You. So she had a really good year. And then there's Greg Kinnear, who up to that point was a TV personality on E.
And then he did Sabrina, the remake, where he was the romantic lead.
And then he does this. He gets nominated for supporting actor. But you're right. There's really not a whole lot to the movie, but it's the writing and it's definitely the performances. These 3 characters who are down on their luck, they're lost souls who found each other and saved each other. And just the irony that Nicholson's character is such a narcissist, but you like him anyway. Like when he puts the dog down the garbage chute.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it does have some really great quotable lines, like, what if this is as good as it gets?
Yep.
I like the sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
There's some great moments which allow Jack Nicholson to really, you know, get into that dialogue and really wrap his teeth around it. He said it's one of the toughest films that he's done. One of the toughest films, definitely, that him and James L. Brooks did because of that character. And James Brooks said, I couldn't think of anyone else who could have played this part. I had to think of someone who could play this monster but not completely turn the audience off. Someone who could, in the end, be loved. So Jack was the only choice.
And when you're watching the movie, can't think of anyone else other than Jack in that role, despite the fact that the role was originally offered to John Travolta.
Yeah.
So, boy, am I glad that Jack Nicholson came a-running. And actresses who turned down the role of Carol, would you believe Courtney Love? Very interesting. And Holly Hunter, because they had worked together on Broadcast News.
Interesting.
I thought it was really nice. It was a really, really touch of class that when Jack Nicholson accepted the Oscar, he dedicated his Oscar to J.T. Walsh, who he had acted with in A Few Good Men, who had just passed away recently. So I thought that was really
nice.
Sweet.
That's really nice. And, you know, I mean, Jack had played these outsiders and rebels, like we were saying before, so I think that made him perfect for the role. And I really enjoyed rewatching it. Plus, I keep forgetting every time I see it, I go, oh, that's right, Maya Rudolph is in it.
Oh, yeah.
She plays the cop.
Yes.
I don't know if she has any lines at all, but she's there. And oh, yeah, I forgot she was in it.
There was another movie that we're going to talk about later where if you blink and you miss it, you miss somebody very, very famous who wasn't famous yet. But yeah, I brought, when we were doing our research, and of course the best part of doing the research for Profiles,
watching the movies
and rediscovering them, especially with the perspective of hindsight. You know, we know a lot more about movies now than we did then, and watching it as a body of work, like when you watch all these actors and directors' films at once, you really put it into perspective. But it's a really lovely, romantic, intimate, funny, bittersweet movie, and our profilers really liked it too. Cole Boone, our good friend Cole Boone, who's now an administrator on our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mantz. Yay, way to go, Cole. He said, Cole. In preparation for this episode of Profiles, I had to do some Jack Nicholson homework, and I watched As Good as It Gets for the first time ever this past week. I was blown away by how much I enjoyed it. It's a terrific film filled with romance, comedy, and drama that will ultimately put a smile on your face. Nicholson's performance is one that stands above the rest as we see him change from a narcissist, grouchy man into a caring, loving person who will put others' needs over his own. A truly great performance and a well-deserved Oscar victory. Hashtag Film Geek. Hashtag Profiler for Life.
I love watching the live comments that come in on YouTube. Ed Vasquez put another great line from As Good As It Gets. How do you write women so well? I think of a man, I take away reason and accountability.
Oh.
Not true, but it's a great line.
That's a great line.
Jason Smith says about As Good As It Gets, Jack Nicholson as Melvin is masterful. Add in Helen Hunt and you have a dynamic pair right up there with Hepburn and Tracy or Ryan and Hanks.
Good one.
His transformation is impeccable and he delivers those amazing one-liners throughout the entire picture. Alicia Malone and Movie Mantz, brackets Scott, think white and get serious. I love that because Nicholson is the best.
Okay, full disclosure, Think White and Get Serious is a quote from the movie.
Yes.
So there you go. But, you know, watching these movies and just remembering so many other great Jack Nicholson performances, great Jack Nicholson movies, this was a damn hard 5 easy pieces list to come up with.
It was.
And even harder to try and pick out your right stuff.
Our favorite scenes.
What is yours?
I was thinking a lot about this, and one that I couldn't go past is from A Few Good Men. Is it going to be yours too? I just saw it written down.
It is mine, but I have a backup plan.
Okay, cool.
So you go with it.
Yeah, A Few Good Men, the "You can't handle the truth."
Oh, so great.
Which has become such an iconic line because of the way he delivers it. I mean, he's only in a few scenes in that movie. 4 scenes. There you go. Thanks, Scott. And he completely owns those scenes. I mean, he's up against Tom Cruise, who we've spoken about before, and Tom does such a great job against him too. He gets so angry throughout his speech, and just the way he barks out those lines, it says a lot about his character.
I want the truth.
Yeah.
You can't handle the truth.
And it says a lot about his character. It's also really intense to watch, and I love how it ends with, "You're goddamn right, I did."
Oh, it's so great. It's
so good.
Such an iconic. I remember that movie when that came out in December of 1992. I saw it at the Universal City Walk. Before it was a City Walk, it was just one theater, and just being blown away by that last scene, that courtroom scene. You know, Cruise was so intimidated by him, and he's just like saying, "I want the truth." It's so great, and this, people still quote that line. So yes, that is definitely not just yours, not just mine, but I feel like that would be everybody's Jack Nicholson right stuff.
Yep.
But my backup plan does go to 5 easy pieces when, as Bob Dupia, the diner scene.
Yes.
The diner scene. Because, you know, when you look at that character, that was his breakthrough lead performance, that, you know, outside of Roger Corman movies. But that was like a sort of quintessential Jack role because he's sort of loose. He could flip on a dime, and he sort of does in that scene. He's driving across, you know, with the ladies, and, you know, he says, you know, the chicken, I want you to hold it between your knees. And she's like, get out. And he like throws and it's just a hint of the type of roles and performances that were to come for the next few decades.
Hint of the madness.
Hint of the madness. Amazing. I mean, it's an amazing film. That was another one that I really got a lot out of watching again. And I was like, you know what? As a backup, because I have a feeling Alicia's going to pick A Few Good Men as her fan, as
we think
right
alike.
stuff. Yes, we do. High five to that. So, but now, Alicia, I'm very excited because for the first time since we've been doing profiles, one of our topics that we had named and we weren't crazy about the name fits perfectly.
Yes.
The Last Detail.
The Last Detail, which is a Jack Nicholson movie. It's also the name of our segment where we give a bit of trivia.
Trivia.
A bit of things you might not know.
Well, tell me something I don't know.
Well, I'm sure you know this, but did you know
Tell me.
that Jack and Marlon Brando were close friends and they were neighbours on Mulholland Drive, which people nicknamed Bad Boy Drive because those two living next door to each other. Apparently, Brando used to wander into Jack's house and look through his refrigerator because he put a lock on his own refrigerator, and then he might just like leave some underpants behind and he'd find them in the laundry. Anyway, that's not my point. After Brando died, Jack bought his house and then he demolished it because he didn't want anyone to see what had happened to the house and to use that as a symbol of Brando's demise.
No way.
So he wanted to keep his memory alive. Isn't that nice?
That is nice, and I did not know
there
that.
you go.
The way to go. Thank you for that bit of trivia.
No probs.
Did you know, and I'm sure you knew this one because it's been out there, that Jack Nicholson turned down the role
That was going to be one of my
Finish
quiz show questions.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. Michael Corleone
He
from
turned
The
it down.
Godfather.
Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Did you know that he also turned down the lead role in Bad Santa?
Oh, did he?
Oh, can you imagine Jack Nicholson in Bad Santa?
I didn't know that.
That would have been good.
That would have been good. Well, did you know that Jack and Danny DeVito grew up as childhood friends
I
in
didn't
New
know that.
Jersey? They were buddies. Both their families owned a hair salon in Jersey. So they grew up together, and then, of course, later on they worked with each other. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Hoffa, which DeVito directed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Hoffa. Hoffa's one of those movies that, like, great performance, not a very good movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, nominate me.
Yeah.
But did you know that Jack Nicholson's salary for Easy Rider was $392 a week?
Wow.
Well, you know what? Back in 1969, that might have been a lot of money.
That might have been good money.
What else? You got something else?
No, that's it.
Okay, I got one more for you.
Okay.
Did you know that Tom Cruise's imitation of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men improvised? Remember that scene where he's like imitating him, and everybody in the theater laughed?
That's so funny.
Totally improvised.
A lot of people can do a great Jack impression.
Can you?
No.
No, I can't either. You can't handle the truth.
A lot of people can. I cannot.
You know what? That's okay. Nobody can do Jack except Jack. People
way
have
Jack
tried.
can do Jack,
We're
yeah.
going to just take this moment to pause, take care of some business
Put
here.
your sail suit on.
Okay, this is where the pitch comes in, ladies and gentlemen.
Got my suitcase ready to show you my wares.
We know that you love profiles. We know that you know that we love profiles. In order for us to keep profiles going, we need you to do a few things for us that are really, really, really important. First thing is go to our Facebook page, which is Profiles with Malone and Mantz. Give our Facebook page a like. And by liking our Facebook page, you'll be able to join in on the fun when we ask you about your favorite movies and you chime in and we read those comments on the show, as you can see. We also like to have people join in on the brackets where they're picking their favorite characters or favorite scenes. But most of all, you'll be the first to know who our next profile is going to be, because that's where we've been announcing who our next profiles is. So make sure you like our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mantz. Also, very, very important, go to iTunes, subscribe to our podcast. It's just called Profiles, and make sure you rate and review us on iTunes. Really, really important. These ratings and reviews on iTunes are really what keep us going. Very, very important. Also, make sure you follow me and Alicia on Twitter. She's at Alicia Malone. I'm at Movie Mantz. At Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz.
Still on the repetition.
At Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, third time's a charm. And then there's YouTube.
Oh, yeah, and then I get to do my YouTube
You get to do YouTube, yeah.
And then you can subscribe to us, youtube.com/Popcorn Talk Network. And we do this show. At the moment, it's every second Tuesday, 3 p.m. PST, LA time live. But soon we'll get back to doing it once a week. We just had a busy few months, but we'd love to get back to that. So subscribe there, because then you can watch it live. You can join in on the chat, which I try and keep an eye on throughout the show.
She's good.
And also you can comment later on.
And one last thing, make sure you share Profiles with everyone you know, and make sure you have them share it too. Share our Facebook page and ask your friends to share it with their friends too. Again, it's all about sharing and getting the word out about Profiles. We love Profiles. We know you do too, so let's keep it going.
Good job, Scott.
Thank you very much. It gets another high five.
But you got to take a shot every time we high five,
yes.
by the way.
Drinking game, make sure you take a shot every time we high five.
One day we'll play along during the show.
We got a lot. Oh, it's a great idea. Oh my God, drunk Profiles.
Oh my God.
Let's do it. But for now, number 4 on our 5 easy pieces is...
Wait till they get a load of me.
Batman. Or the Joker.
The Joker.
It should have been called the Joker, because let's face it, in the exact words of the review from Variety back in 1989, Jack Nicholson stole every scene of Batman. Released June 23rd, 1989. Directed by Tim Burton, cost $48 million to make. Total box office worldwide, $411 million.
Wow.
1 Oscar nomination and win for Best Art Direction. And should Jack have not... he should have been nominated for this movie.
It's such a good performance, because he had the tough job of having to play a comic book villain as a comic book villain, not as a grounded, real guy, but had to play him as he was in the comic book and also make him haunting. And he did that.
He did do that.
He's got that sort of dark tone to him, and then a little bit of a comedic tone, the smile, but he's very cruel, very jealous. He's got lots of anarchy about him. You just never know when he's going to let loose, and that's what makes him terrifying in a very different way to Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger had a really tough job, big shoes to fill, and he, of course, did something brilliant with his version of the Joker. But up till that point, and even now, people might prefer Jack's Joker. The Joker was the defining Joker for a long time.
Well, I totally agree. And it's amazing, just to sort of veer off track about Heath Ledger, how he was able to do something completely different and give a performance that is just as strong as Nicholson's, but for different reasons.
Yes, and Jared Leto has to do it next.
Oh, right, Suicide Squad. But I'll tell you, Nicholson's performance is so great. It's so theatrical. I mean, he chews every scene, but not in a bad way.
No.
He's so fun to watch. Every bit of dialogue that he delivers is so dramatic and theatrical and funny and disturbing in some ways. But it is just such a great movie. And no offense to Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne Batman, but I watch Batman for Jack Nicholson's Joker.
But that's why it works too, is the Joker and Batman in this movie are so different from each other.
Oh, yeah.
Completely different. That it's so funny to see those two different types go up against each other.
Well, Jack Nicholson said this about his performance in Batman. He said, the thing I like about the Joker is that his sense of humor is completely tasteless.
Sort of.
Okay. Maybe not.
You sound like Christoph Waltz there.
Oh, no. Now, he'd be a good Joker.
He would. But
Jack stole this movie, and to this day, he says that the Joker is one of his favorite roles. And did you know what's interesting? He got $6 million as an upfront salary, and he got a percentage of the profits of the box office gross. So his total payday, depending on the fuzzy math, was anywhere between $60 million and $90 million.
Wow.
For this movie.
Wow.
And he also had an off-the-clock agreement in his contract, which stipulated, I'm only going to work this amount of hours each day, proving once again that it is Jack's world and we just live in it.
True.
And that whenever there was a Lakers game at home, he was out the door so he could make the game.
That is so cool.
In his contract.
That's so cool. I love the makeup, obviously his smile, and that's why Jack, another reason why he's so good for this role, is because he has that great smile.
Yeah, he really didn't need makeup for it.
So good.
Even though it took him 2 hours every day to get the makeup applied. And Jack actually demanded approval of the makeup designer, who was Nick Dudman. So again, this guy, 1989, he had power. I mean, he just was great in this movie.
Definitely. Well, Chuck Wood III loves Batman, says, my all-time favorite Nicholson performance was in Batman. Nicholson's turn as the Joker was, for the longest time, tough to beat, and I still feel that his portrayal of the Joker will stand the test of time as one of the greatest comic book supervillains in film history.
No question. Aaron Turner says, as the Joker in Batman, I know the term is overused, but it really gave the character an edge. The scene that really stands out to me is the one where he kills the guy with the feather pen. He casually gets into the limo as Bruce Wayne follows. Bruce Wayne gets to the car. The Joker gives him an almost childlike smile and waves. And the scene is very effective in showing Batman what he was up against.
Well, I love Liam Legrand is on the live chat. He says he deserves all the money in the world for his incredible films.
Oh, it's true.
I agree.
Totally deserving.
Yeah.
And totally deserving now is the highlight of the show, the part that you love the most, Alicia Malone.
Quiz show.
Quiz show. We test each other's knowledge on Jack. So why don't you go first?
Okay, you're going to guess this one because you kind of already said it. But anyway,
okay.
It's an interesting fact. So which roles did Jack turn down? A, Michael Corleone in The Godfather.
Okay.
B, the title role in Nixon. C, Danny Warbucks in Annie. Or D, all of the above.
I'm going to say all of the above.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my question for you. All right, just to show you how much we are like the same person here.
Yes.
Which of the following roles were not offered to and turned down by Jack Nicholson?
What?
I mean, again, I'm just taking her question and rewording it. Which of the following roles were not offered to and turned down by Jack Nicholson? The lead in Close Encounters, the Dustin Hoffman role in Kramer vs. Kramer, the Tom Cruise role in Rain Man, and the Martin Sheen role in Apocalypse Now. I can't help myself.
I know, you help me every time. But I would have said anyway, Dustin Hoffman's role in Kramer vs. Kramer.
That is correct. Yay! She wins. I mean, come on. This is crazy or what?
I know.
Sheesh.
So funny. So funny. All right. Well, let's continue our 5 easy pieces
Coming
right
in at
now.
number
At number
three.
3 is...
Evelyn, put that gun away. Let the police handle this.
He owns the police.
Ooh, Chinatown.
I chose that grab rather than the most famous line, which is "Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown," because I wanted one with Jack Nicholson.
And also it's sort of, I actually feel like that line is indicative of representing the whole movie.
Yes, thank you.
Just especially with the Noah Cross, John Huston's character. Released June 20th, 1974, directed by Roman Polanski. 11 Oscar nominations.
Wow.
Hard to believe, 1 win. I mean, this movie is so iconic.
For best screenplay.
For best screenplay, Robert Towne.
A lot of people say that it is the perfect screenplay. It's really well written. It was written with Jack in mind for Jake. And it's kind of one of the last few film noirs. It could be called a neo-noir as well because it has that film noir style, but it's in color and it's modern, more modern than the older film noirs. But I love a film noir, so I love that feeling of the detective, the
gumshoe,
the woman that you're not sure exactly what's going on with her, and
femme fatale.
And there's something dark underneath these characters, these powerful, rich characters. It's such a fascinating story.
I'm glad you brought up the neo-noir to describe Chinatown, because even as I was watching the film, I thought, oh, it's film noir in color. But when I started doing some reading about it and they described it as neo-noir, I didn't see that. Like when I think of neo-noir, I think of David Lynch.
Blade Runner.
It's a great example. But this is classic film noir. It just happens to be in color.
Exactly. If it was black and white, then it would be
perfect.
100% film noir.
And especially even the score by Jerry Goldsmith. He was also nominated for that.
It's hard to define film noir anyway because it's more than just black and white. It's a feeling as well. So I say film noir.
Well, I'm with you on that, and that gets a high 5. But this is a film that the screenplay is definitely regarded as one of the all-time greats. It's a screenplay that is taught in classes along with screenplays like Casablanca, All About Eve, and even Back to the Future is regarded as one of the great screenplays now. But this is a complex, challenging, intelligent movie. You have to be on the ball while you're watching this movie. Now, that's not to say that it's convoluted. It's a challenging film. It is one that you have to stay on top of. It's also shocking when you realize what the Faye Dunaway character is dealing with.
And she's hiding.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Even just watching this movie again, it is still shocking.
Yeah, this was Polanski's last film in the
America.
US before he fled, and his movies are often really, really dark, and it does have that horrific undertone to it. It also feels quite mythic in a way. It's got a sort of epic feel, and you never see that coming, and it's one of those films where you have to kind of connect the dots when you first watch it. You're like, okay, so that character is this. It just treats the audience as being intelligent.
Exactly. I'm watching it on Blu-ray over the weekend. I was like, God, thank God I could just rewind it if I needed to. But that you want to do that. You don't get lost and be like, oh, I didn't get it. But Roger Ebert, in his review back in 1974, said this is a triumph of acting. Jack Nicholson inhabits the character of J.J. Gittes like a second skin. His possession is total and complete. Roger Ebert, 1974.
Well, that's the thing is that you have to have empathy for Jake. You have to want to follow him on this journey, and that's why Jack is such a good lead actor in this role. I love some of the dialogue in the movie. Well, we said, forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown. But also the, I goddamn near lost my nose, and I like it. I like breathing through it. And I still think you're hiding something. And it's funny that Polanski made the cameo as the guy that
cut his nose. And when you're watching that scene, they had to be very, very careful in shooting that scene. And some people said that he actually cut his nose because
it looks real.
It looks real. I mean, how did they do that? But you don't see a scar on his nose now. But what do you think about this lead character who spends much of the film wearing a bandage on his nose? I mean, that was risky for even in the early 70s when they were taking all sorts of great chances, which is why the 70s are just like my favorite era.
Yeah, me too. And this was the 70s dream team right here with Polanski, with Jack, with Faye Dunaway, with John Huston. Yeah, Robert Evans producing it. It's got everyone you want.
It's the ultimate 70s movie, which is a shame that the 1990 sequel that Nicholson directed, Two Jakes, not very good. And because it didn't do well, the plans for a third movie.
So it was supposed to be a trilogy.
The first film, well, Chinatown dealt with water. The second film, Two Jakes, dealt with oil. And the third movie, which is going to be called Cloverleaf, dealt with land. 3 main things that California treats better than gold. But it is a fantastic movie, and just that last line, which was a throwaway line, is one of the great lines in cinema history.
Yes.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Just futile.
It's just, you know what? This is Chinatown. Forget it.
Yeah.
But Liam Logrand says Chinatown will not only be my personal favorite Jack Nicholson film, it's in my top 10 movies of all time. With film noir being my favorite genre, it doesn't come as a surprise that I love the character of J.J. Jake Gittes. He's the only man with a moral compass in a city brimming with corruption, providing hilarious wit and a likability that makes him my favorite private eye detective. Even with a cut nose, he still looks badass. Wow, I love that. His chemistry with my personal favorite femme fatale, Evelyn Cross Mulray, Faye Dunaway, is exceptional. One of the most shocking endings to a film in cinema history. Who the hell looks at John Huston the same after this film? One of the great villains for the big screen. Hashtag Film Geek. Hashtag Profiler for Life.
I love that. Jay Zach on the live chat says, I couldn't help think of Dark Knight during the nose scene. You want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And Mark Tordai, I love this because he says, on recommendation from Alicia, oh, thanks, I finally saw Chinatown a couple of months ago. I'd always heard great things because Chinatown is considered one of the most perfect screenplays ever written. Set during the California water wars, Chinatown brings us down a rabbit hole of corruption and murder like any good old-fashioned film noir. Jack Nicholson's performance was riveting as Jake Gittes, a man who will stop at nothing to get to the bottom of what he's hired to do, even if it means bodily harm. This is one of Jack's most complicated performances and worth his Golden Globe victory. I agree. It's actually one of his most well-rounded characters, one of his most subtle and restrained characters.
People think that he won the Oscar for that movie, and he should have. Although, wait, he didn't. Who did win that year?
I'm not sure.
Wait a minute.
1974. Was it like... Did Gene Hackman win for Conversation? No.
Conversation was...
Because that was the same year.
I feel like that was the year...
Godfather.
Part 2. Part 2.
Do you think it was Pacino?
I think it might have been Art Carney for Harry and Tonto.
Right.
I think if someone can check us out on the live feed right now, that would be really awesome. Who won Best Actor in 1974? Please let us know. We're dying here. We're dying here. But you know what I love about this next category? When we can't fit a movie in our Fast Five, or in this case, our 5 easy pieces, we have another category called The Others, where we just get to talk about great movies and great performances.
Exactly.
What are some of the movies in your Others for Jack Nicholson, Alicia Malone?
Well, we already talked about 5 Easy Pieces. Yep. That's one of his great rebel roles. And The Last Detail, which was another rebel, a sailor, Hal Ashby. So Terms of Endearment, 1983, won him another Oscar, his second Oscar. It was an older character for him, unlikable, and he had to kind of play second fiddle to Shirley MacLaine, and did such a great job.
Well, I love a movie that not a lot of people saw called The Pledge.
Yeah, I think I saw it.
The Pledge came out in 2001. It was directed by Sean Penn. It was the second movie.
That's right.
The second time working together, because they also did The Crossing Guard.
Forgot about this film.
He plays this retired police chief who's trying to catch a child killer, and he pushes the ethical boundaries when he does so, leading to a conclusion, a last scene that is haunting and unforgettable. This is a riveting, powerful film, an overlooked Jack Nicholson gem. I'm telling you, if you have not seen The Pledge, check it out.
I remember seeing it once, but now I want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's a goodie.
Refresh my memory. The Departed, which we spoke about already, where he plays the Boston mob boss, Frank Costello. Do you want to do your impression?
Well, when he's doing the rat scene, he's like, and I smell like rat.
You do that so well. You make one of your eyes go in. Whoa.
I'm sure someone will screen grab that. It's a meme coming.
Cocaine Donkey.
But yes, the Cocaine Donkey is in the house. The Departed. Listen, that movie won Best Picture, Best Director, but amazingly, Nicholson was not nominated for that.
Yeah.
But you think that he was, and he should have been, but he wasn't. But another movie that I know you love too, About Schmidt. About Schmidt, directed by Alexander Payne.
Yes.
Came out in 2002. He plays Warren Schmidt, whose wife passes away, rents a Winnebago, so it's driving around to make amends with the family, to discover himself, to find happiness. And it's a quintessential Alexander Payne movie. I feel like nobody makes movies like him, like The Descendants. But and again, the last scene of that film, because he had like a pen pal, like one of those adopted kids that he never got, that he had been conversing with, and you realize he touched a kid's life, and he starts crying at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
It's a great moment. What else?
Well, that's it for me.
What
Do you
about,
want to mention another one?
Just for honorable mention here, because if we let this moment go without mentioning some of the other great movies or performances, Carnal Knowledge with Art Garfunkel, directed by Mike Nichols.
Never saw that one.
That is a movie. When we do our profiles on Mike Nichols, which we really should do.
Yeah, we should.
That's an underseen but beloved movie. Another movie called The Passenger came out in 1975. Another film that, in the 70s is given like just one great performance after another. And then there's Prizzi's Honor with Angelica Houston.
That's right.
I think that was directed by John Huston. But great movies. Great movies.
So many that you forget about because he's done so many movies and he's had so many memorable roles. Let's talk about the brackets, which run on our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mantz.
There's a plug.
So if you join the Profiles page, then you can participate in these brackets, because I'm just watching the clock and I know that it's not long till our special guest, and I'm getting a bit excited and a bit tongue-tied. So brackets. This week they pitted the famous characters against each other. So the semi-finals got down to Randall P. McMurphy versus Jack Torrance, then Frank Costello versus George Hansen from Easy Rider, and then it got down to McMurphy versus Costello. And McMurphy won. McMurphy won as the favorite Jack Nicholson character.
Over Jack Torrance.
Interesting. So thank you so much to all the profilers who participated. That was really fun.
You see what happens when you join our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mantz? You get to join in the bracket fun. It's so fun. And just some of our profilers had these other Jack Nicholson movies that they loved as well. Dan Allen Skippy loves Terms of Endearment. He says it's one of his favorite romantic comedies. Jack and Shirley MacLaine were perfect together. You can tell these two great actors are at the top of their game in this Oscar-winning film. Jack has done it all in his career, and romantic comedy is up there on the list of great genres he's in.
Kim Basada says, Something's Gotta Give.
There you go.
This by no means is his best role, but I love him in Something's Gotta Give opposite Diane Keaton. A charming movie, and he gives his character great depth and humor.
That's a good romantic comedy for grown-ups. Caitlin Bonds loves The Departed. Though he has been involved in so many iconic films, my favorite is The Departed. His performance as Frank Costello was a truly terrifying thing to watch. The I smell a rat scene horrified me when I first saw it, and it gives me chills to this day to see him lick the dead fly off his hand, sniff Leo behind his back as if he smelled a rat. That's a great scene.
Yeah.
This was one of the first times I felt truly scared of an actor just based off the character they played. I will never be able to look at Jack the same. That's how I felt about The Shining.
And Seb Lacey says, A Few Good Men. I really enjoy A Few Good Men. The tension between Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise was great. Even though they're supposed to be on the same side, they have different ideas of what the Marine's role is. Both actors are good, but Nicholson's performance elevated Cruise. That end court scene is amazing as Nicholson shows how ugly and disturbed his character really is.
Absolutely fantastic. Moving on to number 2 on our 5 easy pieces is...
Here's Johnny.
Yes. The Shining. The Shining, May 23rd, 1980, directed by Stanley Kubrick, who was our 3rd episode of Profiles. Go back and watch that one because that was a fun one to do. Cost $19 million to make. Box office domestic $45 million. Not nominated for any Oscars.
Outrageous.
But it was nominated for a couple of Razzies.
Yeah.
Worst actress for Shelley Duvall. Worst director for Stanley Kubrick. What?
I know. We talked about this on our Stanley Kubrick episode, which you should go back and watch if you haven't seen it already. But talking about it from Jack's point of view, some people say that he's over the top and hammy in this role, but I think that just makes him more terrifying.
I completely agree.
You feel the tension bubbling the whole way through, and then when he explodes, it's huge.
It's huge.
And I know we've mentioned this before, but that line, "Here's Johnny," was improvised by Jack. He also wrote one of the scenes where he's getting angry at his wife for interrupting his writing, because he said he felt like he could understand exactly what Jack Torrance was feeling at that time.
I was going to say that too.
I know, you wrote it down.
I wrote it down. But this movie, it's so terrifying. It is so disturbing. It is so unforgettable. And this is an iconic performance. I know maybe people might be like, wait a minute, The Shining above Chinatown? Well, this is why. I mean, Jake Gittes is a great performance, but so is Jack Torrance.
Yeah, it's iconic in horror, and it's iconic in pop culture. I feel like Maud, I don't think she's seen The Shining, or someone who hasn't seen The Shining, they would know where that quote was from, and they would know a lot about it.
Exactly.
Because of his performance.
Exactly. Even if you've never seen Chinatown, you might not get the line, "Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown." But if you've never seen The Shining, you still know, "Here's Johnny."
For sure.
And not because of Johnny Carson.
And the all work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. Like, you know all these lines.
Well, and that's why it's so fascinating that Stephen King, who wrote the novel that the movie was based on, was not a fan of the film and opposed Jack Nicholson's casting.
Because he said that you knew straight away that he was crazy. Like, you believed that Nicholson was crazy from the start.
The quote that he said, "If you know the guy is nuts to begin with, then the entire tragedy of his downfall is wasted." And he actually lobbied for somebody like Christopher Reeve to play the lead role because he wanted someone who could play like an everyman, someone that you like, not someone that you immediately suspect is going to become unhinged like Nicholson does. But it's so great watching him.
Jack was Stanley Kubrick's first choice for that role, and there's these great videos online. There's one in particular which shows Jack getting ready for the axe scene, and he's jumping up and down and he's running on the spot, and he really threw himself into it.
Wow, boy, did he throw himself into it.
Yeah.
He really threw himself into it. And this movie was supposed to take 17 weeks to film. It took 51, but long before they both worked together on The Shining, Stanley Kubrick actually wanted Nicholson to play the lead in his long-delayed, never-made movie about Napoleon. Yeah, I mean, you remember that LA Art Museum exhibit?
Yes, when you saw all the books that Kubrick had collected for Napoleon, which never happened.
And he had like a Dewey Decimal card system laying out the plot details.
Yep.
And the movie never got made. Someone's got to take a look at that and make that movie. But
it's incredible. And that's why people still talk about The Shining, is because Stanley Kubrick seems like a director with everything is intentional. And then there's things in The Shining that don't make sense. But Jack's performance definitely makes sense. And it seems like directors love to work with Jack. I mean, Kubrick liked to work with him. Polanski wanted to look for a project, and then Jack brought him the script for Chinatown. And he's worked with every great director you can name. And
our profilers love The Shining as well. Tyler Myers says, "The Shining is one of my favorite movies of all time because I love the atmosphere and the tension brought upon by Stanley Kubrick. It's a horror film that doesn't rely heavily on jump scares or gore, but rather imagery and suspense." Boy, these guys are great writers, aren't they?
I know.
Jack Nicholson is incredible.
We have smart profilers.
Yeah, smart profilers. The role of Jack Torrance and his downward spiral from a stressed writer to a downright sociopath is both haunting and riveting. Truly a horror masterpiece.
Casey Lee Clark says, "The Shining is one of my all-time favorite films. While it is already considered a masterpiece due to Kubrick's genius directing and vision, Nicholson's performance takes it to another level. He completely transforms into Jack Torrance, and his descent into madness is haunting and believable. No one could pull off this role quite like him."
Well, no one could pull off doing this episode of Profiles like Malone and Mantz.
I'm getting nervous.
I know, I'm getting nervous too. It's almost that time. But until we get there, we are talking about the lead performances.
Yes.
But we've also had a bunch of supporting performances that Jack Nicholson has done. And in our segment that we are calling Easy Riders, let's talk about Easy Rider.
Yeah, because no matter how big or small the role is, like we were saying before, Jack always makes an impact. So Easy Rider, that is the role that got him attention, and he almost steals the show, which is hard to do when you're up against Dennis Hopper and Henry Fonda, this great counter-culture road movie, and Jack just pops out of nowhere and has some of the best scenes.
You just watched that movie pretty recently,
yeah,
didn't you?
I did.
Like a year ago or something?
Yeah, about a year ago. I watched it again. I've seen it lots of times now, and I just love it. The soundtrack is so cool.
So great.
And particularly the scene around the fire with Jack Nicholson, I love.
Where they're all getting drunk, or they're getting him high for the first time. He's like, Nick, 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 Nick.
Yeah.
Right? You talked about Terms of Endearment. That was he won supporting actor for that. Was nominated for won 5 Academy Awards. including Best Picture and Director for James Brooks. And The Witches of Eastwick, I don't know if that's a supporting turn, but we talked about A Few Good Men.
Yeah, as we said, only has 4 scenes, but he could have just shown up. He could have just shown up, said his lines and gone, but he really puts his all into the film, and that's what made those moments so special. And Broadcast News.
Broadcast News, yes, Broadcast News. He plays anchor Bill Rorish. He is. It's like when you're watching Broadcast News and you see Jack Nicholson as the anchor, you go, it's kind of jarring because it's Jack Nicholson, but he's so funny how he never smiles.
Yeah, just glares.
Yeah, I love that movie, actually.
Me too.
Broadcast News is, I think, especially because of what we do.
Yeah.
We could relate. I mean, not that this happens anymore, but Joan Cusack running across with the tape and putting it in at the last minute. I mean, it's just talk about a movie with a lot of great dialogue. Broadcast News, 1987, directed by James Brooks.
Definitely.
And that brings us to our number 1 movie
in our 5 easy pieces, which is...
Jesus, I mean, you guys do nothing but complain about how you can't stand it in this place here, and then you haven't got the guts just to walk out? I mean, what do you think you are, for Christ's sake, crazy or something?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Of course, it had to be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And joining us right now on the phone, we are so excited and honored and proud and feel very, very lucky to be joining us to talk about the 40th anniversary of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Jack Nicholson. Please welcome Oscar-winning producer Michael Douglas. You are on with Scott and Alicia.
Wow, what an intro.
We are so excited to talk to you. We're just saying we have to do a profiles on you, definitely. But talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I just watched it again recently. Why do you think it still holds up after so long?
It's a timeless movie, Alicia, about independence, about fighting the system, about individuality, and it was a great book. It's required reading in 20th century American lit classes. And I think it's just a timeless story about being independent in society.
Well, originally, your father, the great Kirk Douglas, had owned the rights for a long time, passed them on to you. You produced a movie with Saul Zaentz, and your father wanted to play McMurphy, and Jack Nicholson got the job. How did that happen?
Well, first of all, my hat goes off to my father. At the height of his career, he just made a movie called Spartacus, and he went back to Broadway, and he optioned this book, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, had it made into a play and did it on Broadway. It wasn't the success that he'd hoped for, and he was going to try to transfer it from a play into a movie. He tried for a number of years and then sold the rights, or was trying to sell the rights. I had then read the book, loved it, and said, look, Dad, let me have a chance to run with it. And it took me about 5 years. And by then, everybody's career changed. My father was a lot older then, and although to this day, I think he holds this on my case, I had to remind him that the director is the person who makes the final decision on casting.
Wow.
I love that. Can you tell us when you first met Jack and what was your impression of him?
Well, you have to remember, Alicia, that the earlier movies, even Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, Jack was seen, I wouldn't say a sensitive young man, but he was seen he seemed sort of an intellect and a gentle soul. He was not the first person you would think of to play R.P. McMurphy, even though it turned out, to be brilliant. But we were talking to the director, Hal Ashby. You made it Harold and Maude. And
yes.
Hal was doing a picture with Jack called The Last Detail, where Jack played a career Navy officer. And he said, you got to look at this film. And we took a look at it, and then we realized that he was right for it. And Jack always wanted to do this part, even though we'd been talking maybe to Marlon Brando and to Gene Hackman, people who seemed more right at the time. Jack had expressed a passion for it. So I met him, when we were auditioning and talking about it, and he was a quiet, gentle man. But after seeing the Last Detail, we knew he was right.
Wow. What was it that impressed you the most? Like when you were up in Salem, Oregon, filming this movie, what was it that impressed you the most about his technique when you saw him in action, and how much did he collaborate with you, with Louise Fletcher, and especially with Milos?
Jack does a tremendous amount of homework, but when you come to the set, you never see it.
Interesting.
He has the ability to make it seem like he's just right off the cuff, but he actually spends a tremendous amount of time behind the scenes working really hard. I think the other magical thing that Jack has is being in front of the camera allows him to be more open and vulnerable than he is actually in real life. He's a shy gentleman. He's a shy man, but when he's in front of the camera, it allows him an excuse to open up his whole persona. And I think that's part of his real magic.
He's so great in this role, and he's so explosive at several times during the movie. Do you remember a scene in particular which really blew you away?
Well, I think that the scene when he makes up when they cut off the television,
yes,
and he's not able to watch the series, and he makes it all up in front of the guys and persuades them. I mean, that was a scene that really struck home. I also think right after the big party they have, there's a moment that's actually a silent moment where he's just standing there, and I watched him look out behind the camera at all of us there as if none of us were there. And it was such a haunting moment about what was going to happen coming up. But I've told a lot of people we would have the group therapy scenes, and you could have a camera on Jack for 10 minutes, and maybe he was not saying anything. He was simply reacting to what was going on in the group therapy scenes, and it's a master acting class.
Yes.
Oh, God,
he just is. He's just right on the edge and right on the moment all the time.
Wow. But when you were shooting on location, you basically were shooting at a mental institution. What was it like being on the set like that, like 24/7? And how hard was it for Jack to be on a set where nobody broke character?
Well, what had happened is we had 2 weeks, Scott, of rehearsal before we started shooting. And the first week, Jack couldn't be there because of prior commitments. The doctor who ran the hospital, who also actually plays the doctor in our movie, he assigned each of the actors to different real group therapy meetings in the hospital with real patients, and they were not identified as actors. So each of them went in pretending to be a patient in these group therapy sessions. And so they were really kind of inundated. Some of the actors were actually living in the institution at night rather than going back to the hotel.
Oh, jeez.
So when Jack arrived, he arrived like a week late. And he just kind of got there, and it was tough because I remember he had a big beard because he wanted to play it with a big beard. And we had a big fight about that, or a big discussion. No, he didn't need. I know he felt like he needed to be like a bear and have that size, but he finally went along with us and went without it. But we were having lunch in the commissary at a little cafeteria at the institution, and he pushed his tray away and he walked outside, and it's like his first day. I went, "Oh my God, we have a problem. What's wrong, Jack?" And he said, "Who are these guys? who are these? They don't stop. It's lunchtime. Don't they stop acting even for lunch?"
Wow.
Nobody's changing character. And I think that was the magic of that movie. Sometimes when you go on location, you're able to create a world unto itself. And Jack, being the most well-known of our cast and the most experienced, is always like that. He's like a coach. And one of his other real talents is he wants everybody else to be as good as they can.
Right.
Because he knows that's what makes a good movie, not just him starring and standing out, but the whole ensemble. And I think that was a big part of what made the movie so good.
Well, that's incredible. And so when your father finally got to see the movie, what did he think of Jack's performance?
He was knocked out. He said, "Son, if it wasn't going to be me, then at least I'm glad it was Jack, because he's great."
Oh,
and I'll
wow.
tell you that.
Wow. Wow.
I still don't forgive you, son. I still don't forgive you.
Well, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest became the second of 3 movies to sweep the Academy Awards, winning picture, director, screenplay, actor, and actress. How special, because this was your first producing credit after doing some film and coming off the streets of San Francisco to have a movie sweep the Oscars. What was that like for you, and what was Jack like after he won his first Best Actor Oscar?
Well, we had 9 nominations, and the first fight was to get Jack to even come to the Oscars. He had been nominated 3 times before and had lost. So we finally twisted his arm to come to the Oscars. He did not want to come. And now we have 9 nominations. We lose the first 4. Jack is sitting right in front of me in the theater. He turns around to me. He says, Mikey D, I told you, Mikey D, this is no good. This is not going to be good. Hang on. I said, hang on, Jack. Hang on. And then we proceeded, after losing the first 4, we then went on to win Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Film. And before I get off, Scott, I really have to acknowledge Milos Forman and the extraordinary job that he did as an actor. Louise Fletcher, who played Nurse Ratched and won the Oscar. But it was an incredible night when we rolled them off, those last 5. It was quite amazing.
Well, this was amazing. Talking with you, Michael Douglas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for calling in. I cannot tell you how much this means to us and to just movie fans around the world, and the 40th anniversary of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, this is really a big moment for me and Alicia to talk with you. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Alicia.
Have a great one. You
Can't
too.
wait to see you in Ant-Man. Yay!
Score!
Wow.
Wait, not only does that get another high five, wait, that gets one of the famous Alicia Malone hugs.
Oh!
Yay!
That was so cool.
That was very, very cool.
Just hearing his voice, and I know people on the live chat were like, please ask him about Ant-Man, please ask him about Ant-Man. But for me to hear Michael Douglas talk about Jack Nicholson, like, that is what I geek out about.
That's what we geek out about.
That's what we geek out about. That's our Marvel, that's our DC, that's incredible.
And besides, who was
How
that?
nice was he?
He could not have been nice. That's a class
It's like
act
every
all
time
the
he
way.
said my name or your name, we're like, that's me.
Fucking ass for our show.
Oh my gosh, he called in.
He called in right
Michael
on time
Douglas.
as we were talking about our #1 movie on our 5 Easy Pieces. Like Mr. Douglas said.
I'm shaking.
Yeah,
I'm
that was
actually
great.
shaking because
That
I
was
was
so
so
cool.
excited
Another high five. You don't
and
know.
so nervous. Oh my God.
9 nominations, 5 wins, based on the book by Ken Kesey. Shot on location, Salem, Oregon. And I feel like more than 5 Easy Pieces, and definitely more than Chinatown, this is the quintessential Jack Nicholson role. Crazy, manic, a tour de force in every sense of the word, fully deserving of his first Best Actor win.
Yeah, he is definitely a rebel. He's a character that you want to follow. He's not a completely good guy, but he definitely plays him so well. I love the outbursts, like we said before, and it's such a sad character too. I mean, Nurse Ratched. She is one of the most terrifying villains in cinema history.
Yeah, she's pulling the strings.
So evil, and she looks so lovely from the outset, and then you don't believe what she can do. The way he interacts with everyone, especially Chief, it's so sweet. It's one of the greatest American films of all time, and it only cost $4.4 million to make.
Very, very good.
Very low
went on
budget.
to make more than $110 million worldwide, and up until the sci-fi movies like Star Wars and Close Encounters, it was one of the highest grossing movies of all time.
Yep.
And I love that twist with the Chief.
Yes.
I love that scene.
Me too.
When he takes the gum.
Yeah.
That is so great.
It's so beautiful, and this is, as you said, it's like a culmination of everything that Jack had done, and all his characters like rolled into one. It's perfect for him, and so deserving of all those Oscars.
Absolutely. It's a timeless film, and Billy Polihan says One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of my favorite films of all time. Holy moly, we spoke to Michael Douglas. The way it handles mental illness, where it is not insulting, really hits home for me because I have a cousin who has a severe mental illness. Jack Nicholson in the role of Randall McMurphy is the kind of guy you initially think is a scumbag, but in time you realize that he appreciates his new friends in this crazy surrounding, particularly the Chief. Louise Fletcher as Nurse Ratched is one of the most chilling and calculating performances in film, and it perfectly contrasts McMurphy's carefree to live life to the fullest Jack Nicholson in that movie proved to me that he is more than just a great actor. He really is one of the best actors to ever walk the face of the earth. Once again, hashtag film geek. Once again, hashtag profiler for life.
I love how people started doing that. That's great. Wolf Status Ricardo Vegas on the live chat says, no more high fives. I'm drunk already, lol. And Joshua Price says, as nice as Ant-Man is, it's so great to hear him talk about such a classic film. I agree.
Yep.
And Rachel Cushing is also on the live chat. She always gives great comments. She says, looking back on his filmography, there's some interesting irony in the fact that Jack Nicholson's performance as Randall Whitmurphy, arguably the best performance of his career, is one of the least over-the-top and crazy performance he's given. That's so true.
True.
McMurphy is the viewer's entry point into a world we're all guilty of making assumptions about, a mental institution. Both he and the audience experience all of the horror, humour, and even some moments of joy that transpire in the ward, and it is mesmerising to watch. Michael Douglas. Nicholson displays such a range of emotion that is spellbinding and sometimes heartbreaking to watch. It is a cathartic experience in the best way possible, mainly thanks to such a layered and truly human performance by the great Nicholson. Sorry for screwing that up.
Well, I mean, can you blame us? We're kind of excited here. We had Oscar winner Michael Douglas call into Profiles, called us by name, talked about one of the greatest movies and one of the greatest actors of all time.
Him soon.
Hell to the yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Hell to the yeah, we will. That seed has been planted, my friend. But now, counting back our 5 easy pieces. To recap, number 5, As Good as It Gets. Number 4, Batman. Number 3, Chinatown. Number 2, The Shining. And number 1, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I closed my book.
Once again, please make sure you go to our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mantz. Like it, share it. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Rate and review us. Tweet us at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, at Alicia Malone, at Movie Mantz, and make sure you share, and then there's the YouTube thing, which I always forget.
YouTube.com/Popcorn Talk Network.
I don't know. I just like subscribe, and then make sure, okay, if you thought this was cool, our next Profiles is unprecedented, because we are sitting down with the person we are profiling, and how that all came about is part of the story. We will share that for you next time. That's what makes it special, yeah. That's what makes it special, but we will announce who our profile is on our Facebook page, so like it, and until next time, bye!
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Whitworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.